Hello and welcome to the Free of Masons podcast with your host, Right Worshipful Brother George Mudry. Just up here, just me today. We're going to be doing the Lost Book of Enki. We're going to continue our reading of the 11th tablet. Joe and Ken are indisposed, so just going to be reading a little bit of Enki. We'll try to get through this. And then if you guys have any other suggestions for any other type of reading you would like me to do, please shoot me out a suggestion, and I'll pick up on reading it. But we're going to get back into the Lost Book of Enki. We're on Tablet 11. The last time we did this reading, we learned about the death of Demusey, who they did some shitty stuff to him. They basically put him in a coffin, I guess. They threw his ass out in the water, and by the time they got to him, he was dead. And we know that this was Marduk who did this. So he's about to get his ass chewed out. So let's continue on. Now this is the account of Inanna's descent to the lower Abzu, which we talked about, we believe is South Africa, and the great Anunnaki War, and how Marduk in the Ikur alive was imprisoned. I don't know what the Ikur is. I'm surmising that it's the Temple Mount. And we're going to get into that momentarily. But, this starts the Great Anunnaki War. So here we go. When the lifeless body of Dumuzi from the Great Lakes waters by Ningal was retrieved to the abode of Nergal and Ereshkigal in the lower Abzu, the body was brought. So they brought him down to South Africa. On a stone slab was the dead body of Dumuzi, a son of Enki, placed. When of what had happened words to Enki was sent, Enki rent his clothes. On his forehead he put ashes. Well, there's your reference to Ash Wednesday. My son, for Dumuzi he lamented. What have I sinned to be so punished? Out loud he asked. When I to earth from Nibiru came, Ea, E-A, he whose home is waters was my name. With waters did the celestial chariots obtain their thrust power. In waters I splashed down. That's interesting. He's basically saying that the celestial chariots were powered by water. Then by an avalanche, the waters the earth was swept over. In waters did Asar, my grandchild, drown. By waters my beloved Dumuzi is now dead. Everything I had done for righteous purpose I do it. Why am I punished? Why has fate against me turned? So did Enki bewail and lament. So he's basically saying that, he's supposed to be the Lord of all waters. And here it is. He's had multiple situations where the waters are actually what did a lot of his family members in. And that's kind of what his... for somebody who's supposed to be the Lord of the waters, every single tragedy in his life has come by way of water. Interesting. When from Geshtina the veracity of occurrences was discovered, greater was Enki's agony. Now Marduk, my firstborn, for his deed will also suffer. By the disappearance and death of Demusey was Inanna worried and then grieved. Then to the lower Abzu she hurried, Dumuzi's body for burial to retrieve. When Ereshkigal, her sister, from the arrival of Inanna at the precinct's gates was told. Now, interesting about this, they call it the precinct. In ancient Sumerian, every city had what was called a precinct, which was only for the gods. No humans could go inside there. So here we are, we're hearing about precincts again. Ereshkigal, a devious scheme on the part of Inanna suspected. At each of the 7 gates, one of Inanna's accoutrements and weapons was from her removed. So they took her sidearm, basically. Then unclothed and powerless before Ereshkigal's throne of scheming and heir by Nergal, Dumuzi's brother, she was accused. So they're having a pissing match in so many words. You did it. Trembling with fury, Ereshkigal to her sister's explanations would not listen. Let loose against her the 60 diseases. Ereshkigal, her visor, Namtar in anger ordered. The 60 diseases. Interesting. I wonder what the 60 diseases are. some sort of a biological weapon, maybe. By the disappearance of Inanna in the lower Abzu, were her parents much worried. Inanna to Enlil in the matter went, Enlil to Enki a message sent. From Nergal his son, Ereshkigal's spouse, Enki what had happened learned. From the clay of the Abzu, Enki 2 emissaries fashioned, being without blood, by death rays unharmed. What in the hell? From clay of the Abzu, Enki 2 emissaries fashioned. He created 2 things. Being without blood, by death rays unharmed. To the lower Abzu he sent them, Inanna to bring back, whether dead or alive. When before Ereshkigal they came, Ereshkigal by their appearance was puzzled. Are you Anunnaki? Are you Earthlings? With bewilderment she asked. Namtar, the magical weapons of power against them directed, but unharmed the 2 were. So, let's get into this real quick. The way it's sounding is that Enki made these things from the clay of the Abzu. So he took Earth, and he created these 2 things that were emissaries, and they were unharmed by weapons, I guess you can say, and they didn't have blood, so they weren't alive. So some sort of a robot or something like that. I don't really know. Suggestions if you guys think, but you might know what the hell that is. Let's see here. Namtar, the magical weapons of power against them directed, but unharmed the 2 were. To the lifeless body of Inanna he took them, hanging from a stake she was. Jesus. Upon the corpse, the clay emissaries a pulsar and a mirror directed. Then the water of life on her they sprinkled. In her mouth the plant of life they placed. Then Inanna stirred. Her eyes she opened. From the dead, Inanna arose. So now we're having stories of rising from the dead. When the 2 emissaries, Inanna, to the upper world were ready to return, so they're basically calling north of South Africa the upper world. Inanna, the lifeless body of Dumuzi, to take along with them, ordered. So they're taking Inanna, but they're also taking Dumuzi back up to the upper world. At the 7 gates of the lower Abzu, to Inanna, her accoutrements and attributes were returned. To the abode of Dumuzi, in the Black Land, the lover of her youth to take the emissaries she ordered. The Black Land. I'm wondering what the Black Land is. Interesting. One other thing I just want to point out, too, that's interesting in this book, you see a lot of repetitive numbers, quite similar to the Bible. 7 pops up a lot. 33 pops up a lot. 60, the 6s pop up a lot. Mostly because the ancient Sumerians, they counted in 6s. We still do this today. Half dozen, counted in 6s. 360 degrees of a circle, 180 is half of that. So let's continue on. There to wash him with pure water, with sweet oil him anoint. Then to clothe him in a red shroud, upon a slab of lapis lay him. Then in the rocks of him a rest place carve out, a day of arising there to wait. Ooh, hey, what's going on, Tony V? This is interesting, and I'll tell you why. It does sound quite similar to the story of Jesus here. I mean, they washed him with pure water. With sweet oil they anointed him. They clothed him in a red shroud. All right. Jesus was supposed to be clothed in a white shroud, but whatever. Upon a slab of lapis they lay him, lapis lazuli. And then it says here, right here, this line. Then in the rocks for him a rest place carved out, a day of arising there to wait. So they're talking about Dumuzi arising from the dead. Sounds very similar to the resurrection story of Jesus. As for her, to the abode of Enki, Inanna set her steps. Retribution for her beloved's death she wanted, the death of Marduk, the culprit she demanded. I would love to read down the road the book of let's say the Gospel of St. Thomas. It's actually a what is it part of? It's part of the Gnostic Bible are part of it, and it talks mostly about Mary Magdalene being married to Jesus. And I am quite curious, hearing of Inanna being pissed off that Marduk killed Demusey, her lover or whatever. I'm quite curious if Mary Magdalene had the same type feelings about this. I wonder if the two go hand in hand. There has been death enough, Enki said to her. Marduk an instigator was, but murder he committed not. So he didn't. He might have pushed it along, but he didn't actually deal the death blow. When Inanna learned that Marduk would not be punished, Inanna to her parents and brother went. Oh, she went back to her own family. Damn, this is why you stay away from the Italians. To high heaven she was a wailing she raised. Justice, revenge, death to Marduk she cried for. At Enlil's abode his sons Inanna and Utu joined for a council of war they gathered. Also, the Enlil's boys are ready to tear shit up. Ninurta, whom the rebel Anzu defeated, for strong measures argued. Of secret words between Marduk and the Agigi exchanged, Utu to them reported. Of Marduk, an evil serpent, earth must be rid. Well, there's your serpent story. Enlil with them agreed. Yeah, so Enlil and all of his sons are like, let's tear this dude up. Let's be done with him. Let's get him the hell out of here. He's a son of a bitch. Let's get rid of him. When the demand for Marduk's surrender to Enki, his father, was sent, Enki to his abode, Marduk and all other sons summoned. So basically, Enlil said, surrender, give him up. And Enki sat with all his sons and said, let's talk about this. Though for my beloved Dumuzi I am still grieving, Marduk's rights I must defend. Though evil did Marduk instigate, by ill fate, not by Marduk's hand did Dumuzi die. Marduk is my firstborn, Ninki his mother. For succession he is destined. From death by Ninurta's gang, by us all he must be protected. So did Enki say. So here we go. We got the faction of Enlil. If you're going to compare it to the Christian Bible. Hold on one second. You wet my whistle here? If you're going to compare it to the Christian Bible, and again, I've brought up this comment many, many times, especially when reading this, as you always talked about a wrathful God, and you always talked about a loving God. I wonder if this is where the divide comes from, because Christianity merged these two, where one minute God was wrathful, next minute he's peace and loving and all that stuff. So I wonder if the Christianity is taking these two gods, Enlil and Enki, and merged them, and then just did away with the war. But it is interesting. We talk about the Christian war in heaven, where the devil fought back against God and rebelled. And here we are. We're talking about gods going to war with each other right now. So I'm curious how this is going to go. Only Gibel and Ningal's, their fathers' call heeded. Ninkajita was opposed. Nergal was hesitant. Only if in mortal danger he will be, will I help. Basically saying, unless Marduk's going to get killed, that's the only time I'm going to help. Other than that, he needs to be punished for something. It was after that a war of ferocity unknown between the two clans erupted. So here we go. This is where it gets crazy. Unlike the contending of Huron in Satu, of earthlings descended it was, a battle between Anunnaki, Nibiruan born among them, on another planet was loosed. Okay. So what that basically says, I'm sorry, I'm going to break this down because I'm trying to make this as interesting and understandable as possible. It's saying that the war between, the battle between Huron and Satu was mostly earthlings. It was that was on Earth. It happened here. Earthlings were involved. So it was kind of like a domestic war. Whereas this war that's about to happen are directly from the Anunnaki. This is the Anunnaki War. There's no earthlings involved. This is gods going to battle with one another. And it's the first time that since being on Nibiru, where war was basically over with, this is the first time that Anunnaki, Nibiruans, are going to war. They're going to fight each other right now on Earth. By Inanna was the warfare begun. In her skyship to the domains of Enki's son she crossed over. Marduk to battle she challenged. To the domains of Ningal and Gibel she pursued them. Him pursued, so she's after his ass. To assist her, Ninurta from his Stormbird, withering beams at enemy strongholds shot. So, yeah, this is an aerial battle right now. He's bombing all his. This is Operation Desert Storm here. He's shooting up all of his strongholds and all of his cities and stuff. Ishkur from the skies with scorched lightnings and smashing thunders attack. So yeah, this is an aerial bombardment right here. In the Abzu, from the river's fish he washed away. Cattle in the fields he dispersed. So now he's going after what you can call a strategic target. Whereas a tactical target is going to be your military installations. He's also chasing away cattle and fish, so he's going after his food supply, in a sense. To the north, the place of the Artifice Mounts, Marduk then retreated. So he's talking about the Artifice Mounts in the north. My assumption is that's going to be your Artifice Mounts, I guess, would be your Great Pyramids. Pursuing him, Ninurta on the habitations, poisoned-bearing missiles rained. Ah, okay. All right. So I wonder, just a thought, I wonder if this is the seven plagues in the Bible, where, firstborn sons were killed, and there was a poison cloud that killed a bunch of people, and you had all the plague and all that stuff going on. I wonder if that's something along. I wonder if this is where this story comes from. Moving on. His weapon that tears apart, all capitalized, the people in those lands robbed of their senses. Aha, great. Coronavirus back in the day. Wonderful. The canals that the river's water bore, red from blood became. Ishkur's brilliances, the night darkness into flaming days converted. Yeah, so they're going all in on this one. As the As the devastating battles northward advanced, Marduk in the Ikur himself consigned. So he's hiding in this Ikur, whatever it is. Ekur. I would love to know what that breaks down to, those two words. Because, again, Sumerians, when they wrote, like, Adamu or Ad-Amu, like, they split their words. That's where we get our syllables, or what are they called? Not syllables? Not syllables. Where they split words, where words can break down, like, Anunnaki. Like, it's all split words, but make one word. So I'm wondering what Ik-er is. Gibel, from it an unseen shield devised, Nergal to heavens, its all-seeing eye raised. Well, there's your all-seeing eye. The all-seeing eye, as referred to in this, is some sort of a... Gibel has a force field. Let's talk about that. The unseen shield device. So he basically put up a shield or something to block him in. Nergal raised the all-seeing eye, which I'm assuming is some sort of a GPS system, if you will, or an all-seeing eye, with weapon of brilliance. Interesting. Weapon of brilliance, all capitalized. By a horn directed. Well, there's your also your Bible reference of the trumpets. Inanna, the hiding place attacked. So she went after the Temple Mount. And that's why I'm assuming it's the Temple Mount, and I believe once we get further in this, it'll make sense why. Horan, to defend his grandfather, came. By her brilliance was right eye damaged. Interesting. I wonder if that's some sort of a nuclear weapon. While Utu, the Agigi, in their horde of earthlings beyond Tillim, held off. So they're whooping the ass of the Agigi and the earthlings as their allies. At the foot of the Artifice Mounts, Anunnaki, this and that clan supporting in battle clash. So this is your battles of Egypt, in a sense. Let Marduk surrender. Let the bloodshed end. So did Enlil to Enki words convey. Let brother talk to brother. To Enki Ninursag a message sent. So he's basically saying, I want to talk to my brother before I'm just going to go freaking surrender. You can kiss my ass. In his hideout within the Ikur, Marduk, his pursuers to defy continued. Within the house, which like a mountain is, all capitalized, his final stand he made. So, again, I'm talking about this has got to be some sort of a temple mount. I'll explain why. Inanna, the massive stone structure, could not surmount its smooth sides, her weapons deflected. Interesting. Then Ninurta of the secret entrance learned. The swivel stone on the north side he found. Through a dark corridor Ninurta passed. The grand gallery he reached. Its vault by the many-hued emissions of the crystals like a rainbow was a glitter. Inside, by the intrusion alerted, Marduk with ready weapons, Ninurta waited. With weapons responding, smashing the wonder crystals, Ninurta up the gallery kept going. Into the upper chamber, the place of the great pulsating stone, Marduk retreated. And its entrance, Marduk, the sliding stone's locks lowered. From one and all admission, they barred. Into the Eker, Inanna and Ishkur, Ninurta followed. What next do they do, contemplated. Let the encased hiding chamber be Marduk's stone coffin to them, Ishkur said. To 3 blocking stones, ready for downgliding, Ishkur their attention drew. Let slow death by alive be buried, be Marduk's sentence. Inanna her consent gave. At the end of the gallery, the 3 blocking stones let loose, each one of them one stone for plugging, sliding down. Marduk is in a tomb to seal. So they locked his ass into whatever this thing is. I'm assuming it's the Temple Mount. I could be wrong because they are talking about one thing they keep talking about over and over is he's going up the Grand Gallery, Grand Galley or whatever. I know that's something that's in the Great Pyramid, and I find it interesting that even though that the Great Pyramid was said to be a burial chamber for, I guess you can say, I think it was Khufu was the pharaoh. They never found a body. I know they say it could have been the whatever the grave robbers could have taken it and all that stuff, but there was never any and they're talking about the crystals and all that stuff, and I know that ancient aliens, I'm not going to get too deep into that, but they talk about how the Great Pyramid could have been a power source. So I mean, maybe he was locked into the Great Pyramid, and that's where we get the story of it being a tomb for the god Khufu, or the pharaoh Khufu. Interesting though. Again, none of this is all factual. This is all just shit to think about. It's we find every day and we learn every day that. Hold on, take a quick swig here. We learn every day that history isn't what we were taught. We learn more and more every day. I mean, we found we're uncovering cave paintings, and we're uncovering things in Turkey, like I can't remember the name of the places, but we're finding that our history goes back further than we thought it was. We have so many unexplained things that we just don't know how they got there. We still don't know how, truthfully, the pyramids were built. We don't know how Easter Island came to be about and how they moved those stones and everything. I mean, everybody can sit there and say, oh, this is how they did it. And I'm not by any means taking anything away from human ingenuity, by any means. I mean, we have the Romans, and the Greeks, they built amazing structures, beautiful structures that still stand to this day. So I don't want to take anything from human ingenuity. But, I mean, for the longest time, we thought Columbus discovered America. Not true. Vikings discovered America. We know this for a fact now. And we've had to change our outlook on things. So these are, and again, I want to just stress, these came from 5,000-year-old Sumerian tale. Actually, scratch that. I think they predate, well, they were definitely 5,000 or 3,000 BC. And we found them. And the difference between this paper and a Sumerian tablet is they were made in clay and they were baked. You can't go and change those. And they have dated them back to when they were well before the Bible. So I love doing this because it makes you think, that perhaps the religions of the world, and I'm not changing anybody's opinion on religion. It's not my goal. This is just all informational. Again, we're Masons. The reason why I'm reading this is because we're in pursuit of knowledge, and I love seeing these stories in here. And you read the Bible and you sit there and you go, well, how did that happen? Or you read this and how did that happen? Or, whether you're reading the Torah, whether you're reading the Bible, whether you're reading the Quran, you hear about stories about Muhammad ascending to heaven, going to the Temple Mount. Well, in this book, it's talking about how they used to ascend skyward, and basically the Temple Mount. So, or they called it the navel of the earth, which is kind of what we still call it today. So let's continue on. Now this is the account of how Marduk was saved and to exile departed. So Marduk was saved and he got pushed into exile. And how the Eker was dismantled and lordship over the lands rearranged. Interesting. Away from the sun and light, without food or water, Marduk, within the Eker, alive, was entombed. By his imprisonment and punishment without trial, Serapent, his spouse, a wailing raised. Serapent was his earthling wifey, and she's pissed. To Enki, her father-in-law, she hurried with the young son Nabu. It's their son together. To him she came. To be among the living, Marduk must be returned. To Enki, Serapent said. He sent her to Utu and Nanar, who with Inanna can intercede. Wearing a garment of atonement, to the Lord Enki, Marduk give life, she pleaded. Garment of atonement, which is basically, I'm assuming some sort of a white outfit, innocence, right? Let him humbly life continue. Rulership he will lay aside. I'm going to call bullshit on that one. Appeased was not Inanna. For the death of my beloved, the instigator must die, Inanna retorted. The Nursag, the peacemaker, the brothers Enki and Enlil summoned. Punishment to Marduk must come. Death is not warranted to them, he said. Let Marduk in exile live. The succession of earth to Ninurta submit. Enlil, by her words, was pleased and smiled. Of course he was. He wants his own freaking son to take over the earth. Ninurta was his son. Of Ninurta, she was the mother. In between succession and life, the choice is. What can I, a father, say? So in other words, Enki, what do you want me to say? I don't want my kid to die, but, whatever. What do you want me to do? So did Enki with a heavy heart answer. In my lands, widespread is the desolation. Yeah, because Enlil's kids went on a freaking temper tantrum. And torched the shit out of Enki's land, which is basically Enki, again, was consigned to South Africa, which is interesting because there's a lot of stone structures they found in Zimbabwe and South Africa and all that, and they don't know what they call them cattle crawls. You can look this up. Swear to God, this is true. These are stone circular where it looks like buildings used to be, and they said, they're cattle crawls. The problem with that is there's no friggin' doors. It's just giant circles. So perhaps they're the foundations of buildings that got wiped out during this little pissing contest between the two brothers. So did Enki with a heavy heart answer. In my lands widespread is the desolation. Warfare must end. For Dumuzi I am still mourning. Let Marduk live in exile. If peace is to be returned... See... Hold on, I'll continue on. I'm stop real quick. If peace is to be returned and Marduk shall live, binding arrangements must be made, Enlil to Enki said. So he's basically bounding him by oath. Here's the friggin' interesting part. If you think this was about Inanna, who was the lover, who, she's so hurt and mama. Dumuzi was Enki's son. So if the way I'm looking at this is, this was nothing for a catalyst for Enlil and his sons to take over power and not have to share it. Here's why. Think about this. You'd think Enki would be more pissed off than Enlil and his sons. Because realistically, the only one that got hurt, the one that should be most hurt, is Enki, because he lost his son. Inanna, yes, she's the lover, but they weren't blood related. It's like it would be like equivalent. Like you have a son, he's got a girlfriend, right? And the girlfriend's family is kind of whatever. And then you have another son, and that son dies, and your girlfriend's or your son's girlfriend's parents are more pissed off and want revenge more so than you, who lost your own son. This is more, at least the way I'm looking at it. I mean, talk about where modern politics come from. Talk about some shady shit. The way I'm looking at this is Enlil needed an excuse for him and his sons to take over power and get rid of Marduk, and this was the catalyst. So that's why they're not so much pissed off about the people who actually did the act. They were looking to they were looking for a reason to go after Marduk, is kind of the way I'm picking this up. Stop me if I'm wrong. Hit me in the comments if you think I'm wrong, but that's just the way it sounds to me. All facilities that heaven and earth bound to my hands alone must be entrusted. So there you go. And he's consolidating power, getting rid of his brother. The mastery over the land of the two Narrows to another son of yours you must give. Talking about the Mesopotamia, the Euphrates valley there. The Agigi, who Marduk follow, a landing place must give up and abandon. So he's kicking out all of Marduk's supporters. To the land of no return by no descent of Zazudra inhabited, must Marduk in exile go. So did Enlil forcefully declare to be the foremost among the brothers he meant. The hand of fate Enki in his heart acknowledged. Let it so be. With a bowed head he said, Nengazida alone the Iker innards knows. Let him over its land be the master. Nengazida. After the decisions by the great Anunnaki were announced in Gazida for the rescue they summoned. How Marduk from the block-sealed innards to extricate was his challenge. To let free the one who alive is buried, a task beyond conceiving to him gave. So my assumption is they took three of these megalithic giant stones and they dropped them sons of bitches on the entryway so that there's no way out. Ningazida to Iker secrets designs contemplated how to circumvent the blockings he planned. Through a chisel upper opening, Marduk will be rescued. Through a chiseled upper opening, Marduk will be rescued, to the leaders he said. At a place which I will show them, a doorway in the stones they will cut out. I wonder if this is why a temple mount was put on top of, a temple was put, King Solomon's temple was put on top of it, and then Herod's temple, and then the Dome of the Rock. I wonder if that was the entryway, I guess you can say. Potentially. Or we're talking about a shaft, because it says right here, at a place I will show them a doorway in the stones they will cut, from it upward a twisting passageway they shall bore, rescue shaft creating. Let's go to the pyramids. They did not too long ago, I seen a special. They did a ground penetrating radar and the pyramids, and they found that midway up the pyramid, there's another entryway blocked by stones. The only problem is the antiquities won't let them excavate it because they don't want to, destroy preserve it, whatever the hell. Through the hidden hollows to the Ikers mist they will continue. At the vortex of the hollows through the stones they will break through. A doorway to the insides they will blow open, thereby the blocking circumventing. Up the grand gallery they will continue. The 3 stone bars they will raise. The uppermost chamber, Marduk's death prison, they will reach. Interesting that there's also, in the Great Pyramid, there's also shafts and stuff that they sent little RVs through, those little freaking robotic cameras and shit through. And you see when you get to the end of this one shaft that there's actually a room, because they drilled a hole through it and they were able to stick a little camera inside there. There's a room in there, and it's sealed off both directions. Wonder if this is what they're talking about. Again, all stuff to think about. The uppermost chamber, Marduk's death prison, they will reach. Anunnaki, by Ningazita guided, his outline planned for them they followed. A second. With tools that crack the stones, the opening they made, the rescue shaft they fashioned, the insides of the artificed mount they reached, the exit they blew open. Circumventing the 3 blocking stones, the uppermost chamber they reached. On a small platform, the portcullises they raised. Marduk fainted, then rescued. Carefully through the twisting shaft, the Lord lowered to fresh air they him brought. So he was basically running out of oxygen in there because it was all blocked off. Outside, Serapin and Nabu, spouse and father, were awaiting. A joyful reunion it was. When to Marduk, his father Enki, the term of release conveyed. Marduk was enraged. I would rather die than my birthright forfeit, he shouted. Serapin into his arms Nabu thrust. We are part of your future, she softly said. Marduk was angered. Marduk was humbled. To fate I yield, he inaudibly said. With Serapin and Nabu to the land of no return he departed. I wonder where that is. To a place where the horned beasts are hunted, with wife and son he went. Horned beasts. Horned beasts. Buffalo? Not buffalo. Yeah. Bison. Maybe bison. Maybe field bison. Maybe that's what we're talking about. Anyway, after Marduk had departed, Ninurta, the Eker, through the shaft re-entered. Through a horizontal corridor to the Eker's vulva he went. Jesus Christ, that's an interesting name. I understand this is all being translated from Sumerian, so they have probably interesting ways of writing things. Anyway, in its east wall, in a niche artfully fashioned, the Destiny Stone, a red radiance was emitting. Its power to kill me grabs, with a killing tracking to it me seizes. Ninurta inside the chamber cried, "Take it away. To obliteration destroy it," to his lieutenants Ninurta shouted. Retracing his steps through the grand galley to the topmost chamber, Ninurta went. In a hollow chest, the heart of the Eker pulsated. Its net force by 5 compartments was enhanced. This is why I said the Temple Mount. Because we're talking about a Destiny Stone. It was also in a hollowed out chest. I find this interesting because it talks about its power to kill me grabs. We talk about in the Bible, you have the Ark of the Covenant that when people touched it, they just crapped out right there in the spot. Wonder if this is it. With his baton, Ninurta, the stone chest struck. With a resonating sound, it responded. Its Gug stone, G-U-G, stone, that directions determined, Ninurta ordered to be taken out, to place of its choice carried. Direction stones. Interesting. Life directions? Maybe. Coming down the grand gallery, Ninurta, the 27 pairs of Nibiru crystals examined. 27. Interesting. Many in his fight with Marduk were damaged. Some the struggle intact survive. To remove the whole ones from their grooves, Ninurta ordered. The others with his beam he pulverized. Okay, so he's destroying this shit. So he's taking the ones that are whole. Outside the house, which like a mountain is, Ninurta in his blackbird sword. To the apex stone his attention he turned. His enemy's epitome it represented. With his weapons he shook it loose. To the ground in pieces it toppled. Apex stone. Put up a Confederate flag. Probably not. Yeah, so the apex stone, it's top stone. I mean, maybe we are talking about the Great Pyramid here. This is, and of course, that's missing. By this, the fear of Marduk is forever ended. Ninurta, victorious, declared. On the battleground, the assembled Anunnaki, the praise of Ninurta announced. Like Anu, you are made. To their hero, a leader, they shouted. To replace the incapacitated beacon, a mountain near a place of celestial chariots was chosen. Within its innards, the salvaged crystals were rearranged. Upon its peak, the Gugstone, the stone of directing, was installed. Mount Mashu, Mount of the Supreme Celestial Bark, the mount was called. Interesting. At this time, Enlil, his 3 sons, summoned. Ninlil and Ninursag also attended. Commands over olden lands to confirm, lordships over new lands to assign them. So they're dividing up the pie here is what they're doing. You take control of this shit, we'll take control of that shit. Don't cross my border. This is where you get your states from. This is where you get your independent nations from. This mentality right here. This is why you don't have one whole giant country or, we all just get along? And this is the reason why. It's because it was a pissing contest. And if you're going to follow this and you believe this, that we had actually Anunnaki who were gods and lived here and they split up the land, well, we're just following their example. This land is my land. This land's not your land. That type of crap. To Ninurta, who Anzu and Marduk had vanquished, the Enlil ship powers were granted. So there you go. He's now the new successor because he whooped Marduk's ass. In all the lands his father's surrogate to be. Of the landing place in the Cedar Mountains, which I've already said that's got to be in Lebanon, that place. Lordship to Ishkar was granted. To his domain northward thereof was the landing place joined. The lands south and east thereof, where the Agigi and their offspring had spread, to Nanar, as an everlasting endowment were given by his descendants, the followers to keep and hold. Land south and east of there. So maybe Babylon, maybe further over. Maybe you're talking India at this point. The peninsula wherein the place of the chariots was in Anar and Nanar's lands was included. Utu, as commander of the place and of the navel of the earth, was confirmed. In the lands of the 2 Narrows, as agreed, Enki to Ninkasi the lordship did his sign. So Ninkasi now has control of the Mesopotamia. To that, none of Enki's other sons objected. To that, Inanna was opposed. To the heritage of Dumuzi, this bitch, let me tell you, she got some balls. Because now everybody's like, yeah, give it to Ninkasi, Marduk's gone and everything. And Inanna is pissed. She doesn't want it. To the heritage of Dumuzi, her deceased bridegroom did Inanna claim lay. A dominion of her own. Bingo! There it is. This chick wants real estate. A dominion of her own, she of Enki and Enlil demanded. How Inanna's demands to satisfy the leaders contemplated. About the lands and the peoples of the great Anunnaki whose fates decreed counsel took. Regarding the earth and its resettling, words with Anu they exchanged. So they're calling up to the big guy on Nibiru. From the time of the deluge, the great calamity, almost 2 shars have passed. The earthlings have proliferated. From mountain lands to dried lowlands they went. Of civilized man by Zazudra, there were descendants with Anunnaki seed. They were intermixed. Offspring of the Agigi, who intermarried, roamed about. In the distant lands, Cains, or Cain's, kinfolk survived. Distant lands. Again, I've surmised it's Native Americans because one of the things they did was they refused to allow Cain to grow facial hair. And Native Americans don't grow facial hair. Few and lofty were the Anunnaki from whom Nibiru had come. Few were their perfect descendants. How settlements for themselves and for earthlings to establish the great Anunnaki considered. How over mankind lofty to remain. How to make the many and the few obey and serve. About all that, about the future leaders with Anu's words exchanged. To come to Earth one more time, Anu decided. He's like, these fucking kids. I got to come down here again. With Antu, his spouse, he wished to come. He's come back to Earth. He's got to deal with his freaking kids who can't get along. I know the feeling, Anu. I apologize. I feel you. And that's the end of the 11th tablet. I'm not going to get into the 12th yet, but I will do the synopsis of the 12th tablet. And this is what we're going to be reading next time. And looks like we got more wars coming on because there's a picture down here at the bottom. And it says, the gods grant kingship. And then the wars begin. Synopsis of the 12th tablet. And then we are on to, after the 12th, I mean, we're getting on to the 13th tablet. And that is the end. We got 2 tablets left. Synopsis of the 12th tablet. The soil dries, plains and river valleys are resettled. Again, we're still talking about, this is still in the wake of the Great Deluge, so shit's still muddy. Plentiful gold comes from the lands beyond the seas. My assumption is going to be South America. Anu and his spouse Antu arrive for a memorable visit. Reminiscing, the leaders realize they are destiny's pawns. And we talked about the difference between fate and destiny. Fate being something that we can control, destiny being something that's out of their control. They allocate 3 regions of civilization to mankind. Pardoned by the departing Anu, Marduk remains rebellious. I told you. The first region and space facilities are Enlilite lands. Man's first civilization begins in the first region, Sumer. So this is where they grant kingship to man. So this is where Sumer begins. So all this prior to, man's floating around, but this is the first region that is mankind's, Sumer. Marduk usurps a site to build an illicit launch tower. I'm going to go on a whim here and say this is the story of the Tower of Babel. Frustrated by the Enlilites, Marduk seizes the second region. He deposes and exiles Ninkazita, or in quotes here it says Thoth, to the distant lands. He declares himself Ra, supreme god, in a new religion. He introduces pharaonic reigns to mark a new civilization. So here we go. Marduk, who later calls himself Ra, is a god who, this Marduk said, yeah, F that. I'm taking this shit over with. So basically Anu pardons him, and that just opens Pandora's box. Anu, who's the god in Nibiru, the supreme god, he pardons him, and Marduk just goes on a freaking tear of just mashing the hell out of everybody here. So he takes the first region. The first region in space facilities are Enlites. Okay, so and then the Marduk seizes the second region, which I hope there's a map in here, but I'd love to see what the second region is. So he gets rid of Ninkazita, which I'm assuming is Mesopotamia, where Babylon comes from. And for those who don't know, Marduk was the god of the Babylonians. And then he travels to distant lands. He declares himself Ra, supreme god in a new religion, which is where he starts the pharaonic reigns to mark a new civilization, Egypt. Enlil assigns his son Ishkur to protect the metal sources. Inanna is granted dominion in the third region, which would be the Indus Valley. Interesting. And that's the synopsis of the 12th. And again, we're going to get I want to get into another book after this. If you guys have any suggestions, please hit me up on hit the Freemasons podcast on through Messenger, and tell me what you want to hear. What you want to hear next, because we're nearing the end of this. I'll continue doing readings if you guys are interested. So that's pretty much it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hit me up on Messenger, wherever. And as always, for the Freemasons podcast, I am Right Worship Brother George Mudry, signing off. Have a good night, everyone. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, and any other holiday you may be celebrating.